I thought today I would go over the process I use when creating florals. This is not really a how-to video. This is just how I approach drawing flowers. I have a little bouquet of flowers in a vase here. Another thing that you might consider is these are just some these are like end of the day, spread my palette on some paper to get rid of the paint, not to waste it. I will say I don't do that anymore. Now I put all the end of the day colors in one jar and spritz a little water in it. And if you think you're going to leave it a long time, just a couple of drops of bleach will keep it from molding. And I just put it in here and it just ends up being a great neutral. Anyway, that's just a tip. But these anyway are just, this is on sketchbook paper. I have this paper that is just this. Now this is another thing that I do. You can take your flowers and put your flowers on your home printer and place a black sheet or a black towel, blanket, you know, just something black, put it over and just print them off. And it really, look how you can really see these mark making. You can really see great shapes that you know, you might not look at those little, like look at those lines on that flower. A pop of purple. I think I'm getting because this is on paper, I'm getting a little bit of glare, but you get the idea. This is on regular paper, so maybe it's not so glary, but I love those little pops of, and the bends of the petals. Anyway, all you do, put your flowers on your printer, close your printer. Your printer is not going to close all the way. Your printer lid is going to be resting on your flowers. You're going to cover that with a black towel and then push print, and you're going to get these. I think this will benefit you. Another thing you can do is just with your pen, whatever, just do some blind contours of your shapes just to get you warm paint set up. I'm just going to work in acrylics and maybe some inks and maybe some oil pastel. I'll see. And then let me get set up. So I think just to get some marks down, I'm going to think about my composition and what looks like a vase to me. I'm kind of thinking I see a vase right here. So maybe let's kind of go with that theory. It could change, you know, as you, I mean, really, you could have a tall vase. That would be, wouldn't that be unusual? Like that, and then they're all spilling out over here. And you've got I'm using some of the marks that are already on here to maybe determine some of my flower shapes and sizes. And if they're spilling over this way, let's see, And like I showed you last week, I was guilty of making them all the same size, so I'm gonna definitely keep that in mind when I'm forming these little flowers. Let's see, this is a pretty little green, and it's going off the page, and it's got some little and then my flowers. Kind of look like that. And then I've got some spiky, really spiky yellow flowers over here. I think I'm going to go with the darker orangey on one side, because if I look close I can see that one side has shadow and then the other side is more in light, so I want to keep that in mind. And there's one down here, kind of like that. Maybe it goes over the base a little. And then there's this little pink. I think those are carnations, but I have no idea. I'll make one a little smaller. And then there is this, I'll go with a darker green because then we can go back over it with a lighter green. And then there's this crazy looking and then they come in. So you kind of can mold your flower wherever your petals are going, you go. And then there's a rose looking, well, it is a rose over here. And I'm just doing the dark. And then there's some spiky looking things over here. And some flowers going down here. I think to get an imagery of going down this way, I'm going to put those there. So we have this little rose. And then she has this is just a blueprint for some flowers. I don't know that they won't be covered up, but it just gives you kind of a road map almost. And let's have these flowers come all the way down, and instead of here, let's put maybe we put the rose here. Okay, so this is kind of our blueprint of what we're going to be painting. So I'm going to do the dark side of these. And then add some yellow. I did green with just a touch of blue. And I'll get a touch of red in this, and let's make sure we can get some value in there before we add the light. And this one kind of has a dark center, and that looks like it has a little bit of a green around there. That one's kind of off to the side. I think using a bigger brush that it's almost too big, it definitely helps. And this rose over here is kind of a purpley magenta. But now this is more about mark making and not about a realistic rose. It's just about putting in your values and your shape. Kind of just more of the idea. And mix in a little bit more purple because I see kind of some dark areas in there. Now these over here are purple. And you kind of just have to say it and forget it. And then when it dries better, we can go in and add more values, the lighter values. So I'm going to be looking at this green, which has a lot of yellow in it. And while I've got smaller. Some of these are kind of jaggy. Is that a word? Jaggy, jaggedy, jagged. And there's leaves coming down. And now that I've got this mid-tone, let's see if this is dry enough. And we're just letting the viewer know that, hey, I have more to say. I have little jaggedy things that also come up. And they come around here. And this is just our way of saying what this shape is. And they get smaller at the top. Some of these kind of poke out. Okay. Now I think what I'm going to do is I've added a little orange to that green that was already on my brush, and I'm going to add it to that side and that side. You just kind of have to roll your brush like that to form your leaves. Okay, now let's take our flowers, and I'm going to turn them upside down. Now I've turned it upside down and I've laid out some flowers just so I can visually see. And I'm taking my blue and adding a touch of the red, and I'm going to go pretty dark with these because you need that value, and I can see that this is dark and this is lighter. 1, 2, 3, and there's one, a little bud there. Now this time I'm not adding the red, I'm just going in with my lighter color of blue with a touch of white. But that mixture is still on my brush because I didn't wash it. And underneath, just a little lighter. I'm trying not to get too noodly with it. Our green, I'm going to go and I'm just, I see a little blue in that too, so I'm just adding just a touch of the blue. And when I use one color, I kind of try to spread that same color, not everywhere, but just, you know, just a little touch here and there. Now, I did yellow and a little purple and a touch of white just to come up with a neutral and a little darker color. I don't even think that's a rose. I don't know what that is. Carnation? I think everything's a carnation. I don't know what it is. And then that petal goes down. And that goes like that. And that kind of goes on its side. And that's like that. And while that's still on my brush, I'm just going to mix it in the green and add a touch of blue. Okay, now I'm going to flip it back over. Now I'm going to work on this blue thing. Let's exaggerate some of these petals to come on out. Make these shorter. It kind of has this going on. That's lighter. And then in the center, like that. Okay, now we need to mix my brush. Now I'm going to work on the vase. And I'm definitely going to try to just keep some of the freshness of all these other colors in there. Now I can tell that my face is kind of this muddy gray color. I'm going to add some orange to that and really dull this down, but make it a warmy brown color, like that. And it looks white, but I'm not going, the water line is about right there. Like I said, it looks white, but there's a touch of that neutral color in there. And it looks like, I really can't, I'm gonna pretend I can't see the top because we've got all these flowers going through. And while the white is on there, I'll add the lighter value on that. And let's add a lighter value on this thing over here. And we've got our lighter value on that. Okay, we've come together. Now we need to decide, do we want a table down here? Let's do the neutral kind of up here. I kind of love some of these marks. So I don't want to get rid of it because that's what kind of makes it abstract, but I want to knock some of it down. And when you put a neutral on these, some of these bright colors, it's okay. I've spritzed that with a little water. I'm gonna let that dry a minute. And then we'll kind of take it down, take it off. These are kind of a pink color, so let's go with a darker color on this side. Do we like that value? I think the reason we don't like that value is if you put this in black and white, this value and this value is going to be the same. So that color is not going to work. Now, where we've kind of spritzed that water, let's pick it up. And that's going to give you some of the, and let's make this a big leaf. I know when I watch this back to edit, I say edit loosely because those of you who do watch my videos know that that is not a skill I possess, but I know when I watch this back, I'm going to be screaming at myself going, you've overworked that area. So you just have to know when to stop. And that's its shadow. Okay, so that kind of gives you a good idea of how I work or how I approach flowers that are just different. Wait, I've got one more thing. What's that detective? um, oh my gosh, I can't think of his name. He always says, one more thing. I got one more thing. I'm gonna bring that leaf all the way up. Maybe that's not even a leaf. Maybe it's another one of those little things. And maybe that's one of those little things. I got one more thing. Okay. Okay, now I'm done. I might go back in and add my little lighter value, and kind of bring some of that up a little, but that's it. Now we're done. Oh, Columbo. It was Columbo.